Raiders! Get moving! Footmen! Cut them down! Move out!
10 years after its announcement and 2 in early access, Bannerlord is finally released on consoles and PC. But there's one burning question so many have asked. Will Bannerlord be a worthy successor to the series, or was the hype too much to live up to? But before we find that out, I'd like to thank Clash Royale. Like Bannerlord, Clash Royale is a real-time multiplayer game where your army, in which you can choose from dozens of cards like barbarians, knights, dragons, and even powerful spells, clashes against other real players. You can defeat your opponents by knocking down their towers and their king to win trophies that earn you glory, but more importantly, rank you up in the arena. There are plenty of cards to collect and level up, giving you a lot of creativity when building your own army. Besides the arena, I personally enjoy the draft and tournament modes that always give you an even playing field, so only the best players who have really good strategies will win. You can download Clash Royale using my links below or the QR code being shown. Thanks again to Clash Royale for sponsoring this video. For those of you who don't know, Mount & Blade is one of the most beloved medieval franchises on PC. It's a game that can be played on a potato, but opens you up to a world of exploration and conquest, from managing armies and businesses to leading on the front lines as the commander of your own warband. All of these things aren't new to medieval games, but Mount & Blade was the first that really put them all together. It combined aspects of intrigue with politics, real-time strategy, fast-paced first and third-person combat, and even RPG elements to make this a unique sandbox experience with insane replayability. Then add over a decade of passionate modders creating their own overhaul mods that turn the game into Star Wars or Warhammer, even Lord of the Rings. Or if you prefer more historical settings, you can become a samurai in medieval Japan or fight in the Peloponnesian War. It even had multiplayer with its own mods like CRPG, which lets you level up and buy better equipment to go from peasant to legendary warrior, or official expansions like Napoleonic Wars, which let you fight in massive line battles before it was cool. The Mount & Blade series, in particular Warband, is truly great, but the continued support from the community made it even greater. But how does Bannerlord stack up against all of that history? First and foremost is combat, and let's be real, Mount & Blade's combat has always been simple. Starting with individual combat, you can now perform different kinds of combos. And I don't just mean attacking multiple times in a row, I mean actual combos that require you to put the proper input to execute it. For instance, if you make an attack that isn't a thrust and quickly follow it up with another attack in the same direction, you'll chain that attack at a much faster speed. Feinting attacks are also still very much a thing, where you start an attack, cancel with a block, then attack from the same direction or a different direction as a way of misdirecting your opponent to get around their defenses, which works remarkably well against AI and human opponents. Another big addition is the ability to shield bash. This is one of the most popular additions to Warband via mods, but now is part of the official game. But it doesn't just stop at shields. You can bash with any weapon you have equipped, whether it's a pommel strike or shove. It's a great way to interrupt and stun an opponent before following it up with an attack of your own. And interestingly enough, shields have become a bit more skill-based. Instead of just raising your shield in front of you, you now have a high and low front guard and can extend your guard to the sides just like with the weapon. It's a nice way to protect yourself from someone trying to flank you, but I find that simply guarding low and turning to the attack works just as well as it ever did in Warband. Just make sure you're guarding in the right direction or your opponent might attack around your shield. Polearms like spears and pikes also get more love than their Warband counterparts. Unlike Warband, where spears only felt good on horseback, now they're more formidable weapons in dealing damage and having an alternate mode where you can throw them. But the biggest upgrade of polearms is the ability to brace them and be able to have whole formations able to blunt the mightiest of cavalry charge. Beyond these points, however, you'll find that the basic combat formula hasn't really changed too much, and someone who's only played Warband or other versions of Mount & Blade can easily jump in and play Bannerlord. But this only talks about personal combat. How has Bannerlord improved large-scale warfare? Bannerlord has made great strides to handling big battles. No longer will armies consist of long lines of troops that either wait or charge at each other. Instead, you may now choose more detailed ways to field your units. Line formations, shield walls, squares, circles, skeins, columns, and scatter formations give you great flexibility in how to handle any given situation. You can also delegate command now to your companions, or if you're in a larger army, your commander might delegate to you, which is a nice change from having no control of the battlefield except from your own troops in Warband. Being offered to lead the combined cavalry units of your liege's entire force, and then told mid-combat when and where to strike, is a really immersive feature that makes you feel like you're a part of something much bigger. Sieges are also more fleshed out. Now you have the options of building siege towers, rams, catapults, and trebuchets. If you manage to keep your siege weapons up long enough, they can even break down a wall which you can then breach in battle. And if you want to, you can personally commandeer a trebuchet and fire hell down upon the enemy. This is a nice change compared to Warband, where each castle or town had the same way of being besieged every time, and any siege weapons on the battlefield were purely just for show. If you prefer to avoid losing troops in a siege though, you could always just starve them out like you did in Warband. But besides combat, what else is there to do in Bannerlord? Well, gaining status is an important part of Bannerlord, and in order to do that, you need to increase your clan tier with Renown. How do you gain Renown? Well, you win battles, complete quests, run successful caravans or businesses. Fledgling players, once they earn enough Renown, can be hired as mercenaries, a good opportunity to start fighting in larger battles and gain relationships with the nobles you fight alongside with. At tier 2, you can offer yourself as a vassal, becoming a landed noble in service of a kingdom. Here's where one of the biggest changes in Bannerlord comes in. As a noble, you can now vote using influence points, which are gained similarly to Renown, on different decisions like what policy should be passed or what mercenary force should we hire for the next war, because that's a thing now.
He really did it! He did it!
It's even possible to be voted as the ruler of a faction, a new way to lead a kingdom without having to make your own, which is still a viable option if you choose that route. However, a ruler can't rule forever, because characters and nobles can now die, not just in combat, but of old age too, and that includes you. So what happens when you die? Well, game over, man. That is, if you didn't get married. Marriage is much more of a mechanic than it ever was before. When you get married, your spouse will be very important with how you conduct your business. You can have them run a caravan to earn you extra money, or leave them as the governor of your territory. Also babies, because your children and how you raise them will be important, because after you die, they'll be the one that take over as your heir. Yes, Mount & Blade is a game that spans generations now like Crusader Kings. Or you can just ignore everything that I said and play your own way. Become a criminal and spend all your time instigating fights and raiding helpless villages, or be a humble blacksmith and make weapons for a living. It's your choice. It's a role-playing game after all. Speaking of role-playing, did I mention Bannerlord has RPG-like elements? Yeah, like 6 minutes ago, dude. Warband's RPG system was simple. You could choose strength, dex, intelligence, or charisma-based builds, level up your skills based off of your main stats, and your weapon proficiencies determined how fast or accurate you were when fighting. Now, instead of 4 stats, we have 6, each of them governing 3 separate skills. How fast you level up in a skill is based on how high that skill attribute is and how many talent points you invest in that skill. The more of both, the higher your experience multiplier will be, and the higher the skill means you'll have more perks you can pick from that skill. For instance, if you invest in the roguery skill, you can recruit bandits instead of always having them wanting to murder you. Or if you're a high level in two-handed fighting, you can learn how to deflect arrows by blocking them with your massive two-handed sword. It's a cool way to give more agency to different fighting styles and builds without it feeling too samey. But Bannerlord isn't all about fighting, or well, it kinda is. There are other activities like questing and competing in tournaments. In fact, there's now a main story quest with voice acting which follows the story of reclaiming the legendary dragon banner and restoring Calradia under one banner, like some kind of Bannerlord. Or you can completely ignore it and play the sandbox mode. Options are good, and I'm glad Taleworlds lets us choose. Other quests can range from training peasants or giving them supplies to hunting down spies and training nobility. Speaking of tournaments, they're relatively the same from Warband with a few changes. Instead of winning prize money, you can also now win special prizes like rare swords, armor, or even a mount. This is a great way for characters just starting out to get some good equipment for free. The big change is that unlike before where everyone is on even ground with weapons and armor, now everyone gets the same weapons but bring their own armor, which means noble and high level warriors will be better equipped than you at the start, but a veteran player should still win most of the time. Now all of that was comparing Bannerlord to what it improved from the original games, but what new additions are there to Bannerlord? The big one is a full-on crafting system. It's a fully modular way to create your own custom weapons. Make the sword of your dreams or my nightmares with different crafting recipes. There are up to 4 parts on each weapon, which range from blades and axe heads to guards, handles, and pommels. Every type of weapon you can find in Bannerlord is craftable, so feel free to make anything from an extremely long rake to the most unaerodynamic javelins. Nobles can also request orders for a certain weapon that they're looking for, which is a viable way to earn extra gold. There's also a criminal system implemented for characters that take quests from more shady characters. If you commit a criminal quest, you increase your criminal rating. These quests are simple like smuggling, but to be completely honest to you, it's pretty bare bones. Becoming a crime lord was something great to look forward to, but it seems after this first iteration came out in early access, it was just never really worked on again. That really sucks, but I'd rather them focus on more important things like CJI and other existing mechanics before working on entirely new ones. Which seems to be the case as now, after the launch, more criminal features like taking control of crime dens as a way to make money have been added. Multiplayer also returns in Bannerlord, and honestly, that isn't really the main draw of the game. But I have played enough to know that it is quite fun. They have a few different game modes, but really where it's at is the modded servers. I mean, Team Deathmatch and Siege games are fun, but playing in the Calradic campaign with 100 other horse archers riding into battle with, knowing that they're all real players and not just AI like the campaign, all of them yelling in Discord about Tengri coming down from the sky, it really is an experience you don't find in many other games. CRPG also makes a return, so anything that you really enjoyed from modded Warband multiplayer is pretty likely to make a return for Bannerlord. There's even a co-op online campaign called Bannerlord Online that's out. So seriously, anything you're missing from the initial release, it's probably going to get modded in. So, what's the verdict? Is Bannerlord a worthy successor, and did it live up to the hype, or is it just a big disappointment? And the answer is yes, it is a worthy successor. And I know a lot of veterans from the older titles might disagree, but I think it's the people who critique it the hardest who usually love the series the most and expect the most from it. There are things missing from the game like feasts or memorable companions like Jeremus, but from combat to questing and even marriage, there are a lot of major improvements and new additions to the game like crafting. And to those who think that Warband is still better, I'll say this. Play Warband with no mods, and then go to Bannerlord and see how different the experience is. Warband with mods is still incredible, and I'll even give it to you if you say that Warband that's modded is better than Bannerlord. But if you're on the fence about buying Bannerlord, then please at least try out the older titles, because honestly, I don't think you'll be disappointed. They're dirt cheap and can run on literally anything. I enjoy Bannerlord, and I think you will too. Please subscribe if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more Bannerlord content. This has been Guiden. Have a good one.